put it on my knee, 'cause this time tomorrow, boys, it'll be no use to me. There were 4 families over there that pretty much were, I think, the strongest as far as keeping traditions going that had been passed down through families, even right unto Canning Kraut and how to build a log cabin, you know. They were the Rays, R-A-Ys, the Nortons, the Chandlers, and the Wallins, W-A-L-L-I-N. Now, the Wallins were an interesting bunch. They came over on the second ship with the Puritans, stayed there 6 months, and boy, when it got warm weather, they headed for warmer climes and less of a poisonous religion, I would say. And they dropped the G off the end of their name, and they were English, but they lived in the northern part of England, which is where most of my family came from. There were very few that came from down around London and all. They were more Southern Scottish and Northern English. Then they got some of them bumped to Northern Ireland, and so it's been a steady stream, you know, since they first started coming. And the first bunch, which my family was in, were not fleeing the potato famine. You know, they were coming here because they told them they could own land. Andrew Jackson's related to me somehow, you know, because all the people that lived in what they called the wilderness back in the 1700s, they were all related because they intermarried back into those 4 families. You know, it was, I am related in so many different ways to my parents other than them just being my parents that it's almost funny. As a matter of fact, I tell it as a funny tale, but the one good thing that happened was all that music remained important while they were coming over here. And I imagine them kind of sowing those songs into their heart, like they sowed the seeds to those flowers in the hems around their, you know, arms and in their dresses, and around the hems and waist of their dresses. They actually sowed seeds, because their husband said, we ain't taking up room in a box to put a bunch of seeds. Well, they brought these songs in their heart. I really believe that. And they've saved my life and shaped my life. If you sat down on a porch in Sodom, and it was anywhere between May and, say, October, you got a dishpan or something set in your lap with either a cutting knife or you were expected to string that pot of beans, or if they were working in the garden, you went out into the garden and they'd sing with you in the garden. You know, that's where I learned Pretty Fair Miss, was out picking beans. And so when I taught it to Sam Gleaves, made him go into the garden with me, and we sang in the garden, you know, because it was just a sweet thing. First song I remember hearing was, I was 5 years old. It was Dillard Chandler. That was the first person I heard sing a ballad, and it must have been in early June, because they were sticky, but they hadn't been cut into tobacco. My guess is they were topping or suckering. And they were all worn out, you know, sitting there at about dark, and Dillard started singing. And I can remember, as a kid, the cold chills breaking out and me thinking, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. How do I do that? So I started talking to Granny about it the next day.